Rock Solid Families wants to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions for sponsoring the Rock Solid Families podcast. Casey's has grown to be one of the largest and most unique garden centers and gift shops in the Cincinnati tri-state area. Whether you are looking to take on that next landscape project or simply add a little home decor to your house, Casey's has you covered. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Call them today at 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home. Welcome to Rock Solid Families Podcast. This is Merrill Hutchinson alongside my partner, Linda Hutchinson. Linda, how are you doing today?
I'm good. You're pausing on partner like you're trying to think.
I still got to make sure I got the right stuff going there.
Yeah.
Our conversion from radio to family podcast.
Well, I was wondering if you were going to try to throw in our topic in there, like my intimate partner or something like that.
That could get messy.
Because we are talking about intimacy today. Intimacy busters and intimacy builders. That's hard to say. And so we're going to talk more about what does intimacy look like in marriage? How do we build that and strengthen that in our marriage? And how can we kind of derail it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which, that derailment comes from both sides, right? We have, because we're going to talk about different types of intimacy, but sometimes we think that intimacy is always the physical side, and we think of it as, men don't know how to approach it. But I think today what we're going to try to do is shine a light on both sexes tend to screw this up with each other.
Yeah.
They tend to. Again, not always, but there's
error
human on both sides. Yeah. And so what we're going to try to do is fish through that a little bit so that we can both understand each other a little bit better. And we're going to even try to give you some different ways to approach how you're going to go into intimacy so that maybe you can come out and hit the ball out of the park.
So we've talked about this before on shows. When men hear the word intimacy, they think
sex.
And so when women think of the word intimacy, we think of closeness.
Holding hands and walking on the beach.
So whatever way you're approaching this or whatever perspective you have on intimacy, stay tuned because I think we're going to try to broaden your perspective a little bit and give you some helpful hints.
That's what we're going to work on.
Practical tools.
All right, so let's get into some of our announcements and our thanks, and then we'll get into it, okay?
Yeah,
So we would like to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions and Maxwell Construction for coming alongside Rock Solid Families podcast. So we want to thank those guys just for the support that they give us. And, as we record this, things are blooming and popping. So for any of your landscape needs, go down and check out Casey's. And if you're driving around in the Southeast Indiana area, chances are you're seeing a building that was built by Maxwell. Yeah. And so they've done a great job of building our community. So, just give those guys some thanks.
Yeah. If you're just tuning in to Rock Solid Families podcast for the very first time, we are a faith-based nonprofit called Rock Solid Families, and we have an office in Southeast Indiana. But we do marriage and family individual coaching all over the country via Zoom, and then obviously in the greater Cincinnati, Ohio area in our office. And so we know that there is such a great need, honey. I was just talking to a therapist, a friend recently, and she was just talking about so many therapists are actually getting out of the profession of licensed therapy and moving into a faith-based kind of organization because of our world today is getting darker and darker and not having God and his word involved in the conversation. It really does. It kind of ties your hands to really what the solutions are, what the hope is. Our hope is found in Jesus Christ. And so Rock Solid Families is all about the foundational rock of Christ being what we build our lives on, our marriages on, our families on. And so that's where that's the perspective we come from, a biblical worldview.
Versus the secular counseling world, really, there's a lot of pressure on them to affirm the secular world. And affirming that is very dangerous, considering the secular worldview can change. You see it changing by the year, certainly by the decade, of what used to be acceptable is no longer acceptable, and vice versa. And so these things now, the counselors are really stuck with, I have to affirm that this guy thinks that this is the right thing, when in fact we believe that God has founded how mankind should operate, everything from how we raise kids, spend money, and have marriage. Anyway, so that's why that comes that way.
Yeah. But I bring that up, hon, because if that is something that you want to support, if faith-based ministry, if biblical resources are something you want to get behind, we would love for you to partner with us. And we would love for you to get on our website at rocksolidfamilies.org, check us out, find out kind of what we're about and who we are, and partner with us, because the more support we have, the more influence we can have in our community and abroad. And that's what the whole idea behind this show is, to reach out and to spread the message and the hope and the help that's available through God and His Word. Yeah.
So as much as we don't like the ask, we know that people often say, this is something we can't wait to get behind and support. And so we are asking you, please support what we do here. And as you said, hon, you can go to our website. There's a donate button there. You can go there, or give us a call if you want to know more about what we do. If you want to ever come out and see our office if you're in the area, give us a call at 812-576-7625.
Yeah. So as we begin this discussion about intimacy, we really would be remiss if we didn't talk about what we believe is the 3 different areas of intimacy. And they all work intertwined, so that's what causes what we say intimacy. One is obviously what you mentioned before. Men mostly think of.
That's the only one. Physical intimacy.
Physical intimacy, whether it be hand holding, kissing,
Not even so much hand holding, sex.
Oh,
that's where I'm just telling you, hon, I'm speaking for the guys.
Okay.
I'm not going to apologize for them.
Well, I'm going to speak for the women. And there's another level of intimacy, another area of intimacy that is, we believe, equally as important. And that's the emotional intimacy.
I don't know. Okay. All right.
That comes from that closeness feeling of feeling connected, feeling heard and understood and valued in who we are as a person, not what we're wearing, not what we're willing to do with you. We want to feel that closeness. So emotional intimacy is so important, equally important as the physical intimacy. But neither one of them are unimportant, right? But we believe as followers of Jesus Christ that there's a third.
Yeah. And the third is the spiritual intimacy. And the reason why that one's important is because it allows you to no longer look at your spouse, because, to maybe put it a slightly different way, the emotional intimacy is more of a natural for the females. And that's a generalization, but just bear with us.
Yeah, because we've seen it the other way.
It's more of a natural with the females. And the physical intimacy is more of a natural for the men. And so, but the spiritual intimacy, meaning your connection with God, no longer makes you look at your spouse of the opposite sex as there's something wrong with them, because now you were made in the spirit or in the image of God, and you know that is right and perfect. Okay. And so connecting yourself and understanding yourself in your relationship to God and knowing that He has a plan for this now allows you to step back and quit questioning why your wife or your husband is designed how they are, and now start to humble yourself and say, how do I work better or well with this particular setup?
And that's so good, and that's so important. And I use the word different. And yes, we are different. God created us different. He wired us. Can you imagine? He's wired us differently, okay? But it's through Him that we find this oneness. The Bible says that a husband leaves his father and mother and becomes one flesh to his wife. And so that one flesh only comes through spiritual intimacy. And that is the deepest, most intimate level. That's that agape love, that unconditional love that God has first showed to us that He wants us to have with each other. And so that's a very selfless, very unconditional love that we want to help you have with your spouse.
Yeah, it helps. It helps to form the foundation and complete the picture. Okay,
Yeah.
so it forms a foundation from giving you a better understanding of why we're operating the way we are. But then it also then allows us to then want to work it together to honor God. And so it's like this big sort of circle that holds the whole thing together as a spiritual side.
Yeah.
Okay. And those who are not spiritual, like who do not have a faith, it's not that they can't have emotional or physical intimacy. It's not that way, but it will be incomplete.
Yeah. I kind of compare it to driving a car on the expressway with a flat tire. You could get there and it'll be slower and a little bit more awkward, but you're going to feel like something's wrong, right? And so that is, and some people don't really realize that there's something wrong. You know, they think
you'll cause a lot more damage too.
Yeah. And that's where we want to help with Rock Solid Families, is helping people understand that there is something better. There is something deeper that you can have as a couple. And we've seen it. We've seen the transformation that occurs when a couple gets it and realizes that they need to put God in the center. You know, Ecclesiastes 4 talks about, that a cord of one strand is easily broken, two is better. But that third strand, that God intertwined in our marriage, is what is not easily broken. That's what we want to see happen.
Yeah, the spiritual intimacy.
Yeah.
So, Hannah, I think it's important because I've actually had people before. I've had men accuse their wife of being physically, intimately dead. In other words, they couldn't care less if they ever had sex again. But I've also had the other thing where women have said, I don't think he has emotions. I think he's just a rock. Like I might as well be married to a computer. Okay. And so we hear these kinds of things. And I think it's important that we understand a little bit about just the need that you have in these. And I like to, when I'm working with a couple, I like to compare it to like caloric need, because caloric need, everybody needs a level of calories, right? But to compare my calorie need to yours is just really is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because we're wired differently. Okay. And so the same thing, like everybody has a desire for an emotional intimacy and a physical intimacy and even a spiritual intimacy, but the amount that you need could be different. Okay.
Yeah.
And neither one is right or wrong.
And how you get it is different.
Yeah.
You can eat a lot of different foods to get to the same caloric intake, right?
Right. And so that's something that we're going to get into, like the whole idea of, well, I might have a very high emotional need, but it needs to be delivered to me in this way. All right. And so it's kind of like that. Well, what are the taste buds? And we talk about even love languages and things like that. But that's where that comes in, where you actually have a certain taste. And so even though this person could be so good in so many other ways of emotionally trying to connect, if they're not connecting with you the way you emotionally need connected, it won't taste right. Right. It won't, you won't take it in right.
Yeah. And so, when we talk about women approaching men and trying to emotionally connect with them, ladies, we've got to understand that we can't just go and expect the world from our man without some warm up. Without helping to connect with him in a way that he receives it, the way that he understands it. And so you can't just plop down on the table and expect him to pour his guts out to you after he's had a long day of work. And he really just wants to, maybe get an iced tea and sit down and vegetate for a little bit, right?
And you said him to you. I'll tell you what most guys get most exhausted about is ladies who want to sit down and frequently, whether that's daily or multiple times a week, that they want to spill all of their emotions. And that would be like a man coming in and saying he wants to have sex way more frequently.
Like when the kids are just getting to bed or
sick a day. I want to have sex every day, 3 times a day. That would be very similar in contrast to how a woman might come home and every single time he seems to walk through the door, she hits him with a lot of emotional stuff. And so again, like we're not blaming either side. What we're saying is the guy needs to know he cannot be groping all over his wife and expecting the physical sex every day because it's turning throwing her off, and she can't be dropping these emotional bombs every day because it's
Good
wearing him out. Okay.
Yep.
And so neither one is right or wrong. This is the balance where we go, okay, we've got to honor each other so that we can carry each other well in both areas.
Yeah. When we've talked about physical intimacy before, you may have listened to our other podcast where we've talked about men are more like microwaves, where you can like push that add 30-second button
Faster than that.
And, you know, he's connected, like he is excited and he wants to connect and be intimate with me. And women are more like crock pots, where you have to turn them on early and you have to let them warm up and really connect. And so the crock pot warming up is that emotional connection through the day. Maybe the text that says, I've been thinking about you, or the hug that you give as you walk in the door, or the help that you have from your husband when he helps you set the table. Like those things are things that emotionally connect you so that you feel like you want to give back intimately, physically to your partner.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So again, hear me out. And this is not to use the word wrongly, but I will use the
wrongly.
word because
Is wrongly a word?
It is now because I used it rightly or wrongly. Improperly. Is that the better
there you
word?
Go. Improperly. Yeah.
Wrongly. I like wrongly better.
All the English teachers are, they're like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
We've used the word foreplay, and foreplay is often associated with physical intimacy, physical sex. And women have said for years, come on, honey, like not so fast. Okay. Emotional men, if we think about just the opposite of that, men need also sort of that warm up phase because, you know, hon, like a lot of times you're ready to go talk about a lot of those emotional things that are on your heart. And I mean, you and I know, like pretty much after 9:30, 10 o'clock, I'm empty. And if you're dropping that stuff, I'm going, oh my gosh.
If I've waited till the right moment for me, he's usually asleep.
Yeah. And but see, like that can be offensive to you, but it can be wearing me out. And so it's like, okay, wait, we've got to dance well here. And so we've actually said, no, and it's okay for me to say, hey, can we do this tomorrow? Because it's not like I don't want to. It's that I just am not going to be good right now.
So
no different than you might say, not tonight, honey.
Yeah.
I have a headache.
I've never said that.
Let's just go
never
on.
Mind. So I can kind of guess physical foreplay. Okay, we won't be descriptive on the show here. It's rated G. But how about emotional foreplay? What would that look like? And it could be for men or for women, but you know, maybe generally more a woman wanting to kind of be emotionally connected to you. What would emotional foreplay look like to develop that intimacy with you?
I think that's a great question. And I think part of it is, first off, backing off of all the other stuff and allow the man to just be where he is. In other words, if he's just coming in from work, allowing him to settle in to the home environment, allowing him to rest or kick off his shoes or to do kind of his own thing for a little bit. I know that when there's nothing else pressing, okay, like you talked about, if the kids are all running around the house having and the husband wants to have sex, you're like, no, how can I even think about that when I've got all this other stuff? The same thing would be on the emotional side, where if he's thinking about cutting the grass, he's thinking about doing all these things, and yet, you know, his wife wants to really approach a lot of deep emotion.
Yeah.
He's going, no. So times that I've seen you and I connect really well are oftentimes when the kids are in bed and we have just settled down a little bit and we're talking maybe about the kids, or so we've kind of, the day's kind of finished.
So
hopping in long car drives.
Yeah.
You and I have had good conversation on long car drives because, you know, we've just had time to be settled and there's nothing else busy in our mind.
Yeah.
And so you and I can go into, that's where we do a lot of our dreaming and our planning for the future.
Yeah.
And we come out of those going, man, we just covered 8 hours of driving and look what all we talked about.
So I've seen it work well for us and other couples where if you have something heavy as a woman that you, or man, that you wanted to share, instead of like surprise when they walk in the door or dump it on them as they're taking their shoes off, that you would say, hey, I got something that I really need to talk to you about. You know, when would be a good time?
And that would be like turning on the crock pot for the emotional discussion.
Yeah. So if it says, you know, hey, later on, do you think maybe we could protect, because one of the things that I need to tell women is the men can't read your mind. So if your heart is heavy or you're really struggling with something or you really want to talk to your spouse, you can't just assume they're going to go, hey, honey, what do you want to talk about today? Or,
Right.
they're going to assume everything's good. And so if there's something that you really do want to sit down and have this intimate discussion about, then you're going to have to kind of give them a heads up. Don't shock them. Don't dump it on them, but ask them like, when would be a good time? Now, if they say next Friday, that's a little far away.
Well,
But-
again, like it's just that cooperation back
Right,
and forth, because most good men are not there to say no.
Yeah.
They're just, they don't know how to take it all on at once. Men have
Yeah.
to process differently, and their mind
Yeah.
has to be right with it. And again, that's
Yeah.
why I'm really getting heavy into comparing this to the physical sex for the women, because we hear that frequently,
Yeah.
and men have been told that many times. Don't just jump in and push this
Okay.
when it doesn't
Yeah.
seem to go over very well.
So here's another warning I would say that works physically for the physical intimacy and emotional intimacy is when you've been asked by your spouse, whether it be to have sex or to have this deep discussion, emotional connection, please don't put them off day after day after day after day.
Right.
Because what you've done is, one, you've kicked the can down the road,
Yeah.
and you've also kind of put them off of, you're not important, you're not a priority. And so we kind of talk about when we're in conflict, 24 hours, to resolve it 24 hours. And so if you have a headache tonight, then I want you as a woman or a man, whoever that is that's kind of putting it off, to say in your mind, I'm going to connect with him or her tomorrow night. Or tomorrow
Right.
morning, I'm going to make it a priority, because I can see that they want that. They want to connect with me, whether it be talking with you or making love together. And so we don't want to keep putting that off, because that's going to be an intimacy buster, which
Right.
kind of leads me to our
Yeah.
conversation about
so
that.
hopefully that background information was helpful, because I think it shines a little bit of light on we're different for a reason, and it's
Yeah.
not a bad difference.
No.
And now it's a matter of learning how to do that well with each other. And so ladies can help their husbands can help their wives by just learning how to set things up a little bit better.
Yeah.
But Lahan, let's talk then about, all right, so, and by the way, these intimacy busters and builders will also, they feed into all three levels of intimacy.
Yeah.
The
Yes.
emotional, the physical, and the spiritual.
Yeah.
So if we wrote these in a way that if you do these things or certain things you don't do well and you start to improve, all three levels of intimacy will have a great chance to start to grow and become healthy.
Yeah. So get a piece of paper out and make 2 columns, because what we're going to do is we're going to give you some practical tools on how to build intimacy with your partner, or things that maybe you're doing that's going to bust the intimacy.
Right.
And maybe you don't know why are they all upset with me? Why are we disconnected? Why are we drifting? You might be not even aware that some of these things really do bust the intimacy up.
Yeah. Okay. So the first one, you decided to make 2 become 1. And that means there's some agreeability between the 2 of you, that there must have been some attraction. There must have been something that brought each other together. More than anyone else, hon, I want to be affirmed by you. Okay, more than our kids, more than my boss, which happens to be you.
No, you're the boss.
But so you have to affirm each other. Meaning, you still need me to say that you look good. You still need me to be able to say, "Man, I really appreciate the meal you made tonight." Okay. And so that affirmation, both ways, I appreciate the hard work that you do. Man, the yard looks good today. Like whatever it is, whatever they put time and energy into, please practice affirming that.
Yeah.
All right. Versus the buster.
Yeah.
And this happens the more dry we get in terms of in our relationship, the criticism.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah, thanks for the meal, but I usually don't like this like this. Why did you cook it like this?
Yeah.
Well, are you sure you're done with the yard? I mean, you didn't even do the backside of it. I mean, I'm seeing dandelions all over the backside. These little critiques, because we somehow feel self-righteous, there almost are always critiques on opinions, right? Which carry no lasting value to the quality of the relationship.
Yeah, I hear couples all the time like, "Oh, I affirm them," and then there's always that but. In there. And so I tell them, if there's a but after your affirmation or your what do you call that, a compliment,
Mm-hmm.
then you just might as well erase the compliment or
Right,
affirmation, because they didn't hear that. They just heard the criticism. It takes 5 positive comments or affirmations to reverse or forget 1 negative criticism.
That's on the short side.
That's on the short side. I've heard up to 20.
Yeah.
Okay. And really, John Gottman, who we've talked about before, has created these 4 horsemen that really destroy intimacy and relationships. And one of them he talks about is criticism.
Yeah.
And so that's just really, but how do you find something, look for something, whether it be the meal they cooked or the grass they cut, or the fact that they picked up your shoes for you, whatever it is, catch them doing good, affirm it, tell them, your partner, that you appreciate it. And then you're going to start to see this snowball of affirmations and the positivity come in your relationship.
Yeah. And the second one here is, in the marriage, being very willing and open to the acts of service. Hollywood gives us this bad image that if you make enough money, you will eventually have everybody take care of your needs. But real life basically says that you and I have to be a team, especially when we throw kids in the mix. Like there's 100% and 100%. And one day I'll be crazy, one day you'll be crazy, but it's 100% of working the service that needs to be done. Okay.
Yep.
And so being available for the acts of service is a real turn on for the intimacy, especially when you see without being asked. And I'm not the best at this. You've had to ask me times and I'm like, I didn't even see that. But it's, again, like the idea that you're willing to do versus it's just simply not available.
Yeah.
You just check out, you take care of yourself and do your own thing. And, that's just a real turnoff.
Yeah. So you can write it down this way. Intimacy builder is being 100%, like you said. Intimacy buster is 50-50. I'm going to go to the line and I'm not doing more than my share.
Right.
And I've had, oh man, I cannot tell you how many times I've had couples who maybe the wife got COVID, let's say, and she was down and out, man, and she wasn't able to even lift her head off the pillow, let alone cook dinner or drive the kids. And the husband would be like, well, that's your job. And it's like, wow, talk about intimacy buster. We're in it 100%. We are a team. And so if you can't do it, I'm going to fill in, because I know that if I can't do it, you're going to fill in. And that's the way a marriage builds intimacy.
Yeah. Okay. So number 3,
Yeah.
This is a mindset, and you'll see this come out in your kids. And if you're seeing this come out in your kids, you probably should look in the mirror at what you're modeling. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is the appreciative heart versus the expectant heart. So it is tapped a little bit to the acts of service thing, but the appreciative heart just says, hey, thanks for what you did. Okay. And so affirmation that we talked about before is the acknowledgement of a particular thing, but just the general gratitude that something has been done versus the expectant, or I should even put a little slash of entitlement, which is a word that we're hearing more and more with our younger kids and our next generation. Yeah. And you know what? That is only to be blamed on us, what we're modeling in our home. Yep. Well, what do you mean dinner's not ready? Well, I mean, you were home all day. Why isn't the laundry done?
What do you do all day? Oh, man. I have heard more stay-at-home moms come to me in tears saying that their husbands have said that to them before. And, again, the husband worked his butt off in his mind. And so he comes home and dinner isn't done.
Why did you qualify that in his mind?
Well, again, I get it. I'm hearing that he thinks he's worked hard, and I'm sure he has. And the problem is that he may not understand that she's worked hard and she's had toddlers running around and she's had babies that are crying and she's nursing 3 times, every 2 hours. And so a lot of times guys just come in with this expectancy, like you said, an entitlement, like I do the work during the day and I should have all this during the night. And so, man, that just doesn't end well.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to the idea of always coming into the marriage with 100% good intention. Yeah. Good intention, not perfect intention,
and
but
coming
good
in
intention.
doing 100%.
Yeah. Number 4, this is a big one for us. If you want some more intimacy, appropriate humor in your house trumps every time the nagging and the complaining. Okay.
So humor on the building side, the nagging
intimacy
and
builder, humor is found to be one of the strongest connections. So for men to women, one of the strongest connections is physical attraction. One of the strongest connectors for women to men is actually humor over physical attraction.
That's what attracted me to you.
Whoa, because you married a clown.
No, because you made me laugh and you brought joy into my life. And so we connected as friends. And, you did make me laugh. That was one of the greatest things. And so, but you got to be careful because
Right.
it can't be sarcasm at the expense of your partner.
Mm-hmm.
It's not funny anymore. And so you may have, won her over with your funny jokes, but then when they're at her expense,
Mm-hmm.
then that's turns into the negative intimacy busting side.
Yeah.
So be careful.
Yeah, and so that the humor is so important, but we have to go to the other side of this, and it's the nagging or the complaining. And so sometimes this is that Debbie Downer. This is that the sky is always gray. They always see the dark side and everything, and that really is a major intimacy turnoff on multiple levels. That you go, I don't even know what to say to this person anymore. Like every time I'm around them, they just go down this road, and there's nothing I've said that has ever pulled them out. And so the complaining continues, and it just gets to be heavy.
So also in that intimacy busting side is the passive aggressive comments where you kind of say something funny, but there's this little ribbon of truth in it that's kind of like stabbing them in the back or kind of like throwing
I've never
them
done that before.
Throwing them under the bus.
Yeah.
And so like that's not funny anymore. And so please be careful with that.
Yeah. The number 5, this seems a little bit connected, but it's really, I'm going to take it out way bigger than just the word itself. It's passion, not just sexual passion, but passion for life. When you are around people who get excited about things, we have friends that get excited about some of the smallest things. And you just, at first you're like, this dude's kind of weird. And then you're going, this is really kind of fun.
Yeah, they're fun to be around.
Yeah, and just being around them is kind of contagious. Yeah. And so seeing passion for things, even if it's a hobby that they have, you love in your kids, and you absolutely love when you see your kids passionate about something.
Yep.
You actually will start to live through them like, oh my gosh, this kid absolutely loves whatever it is, skiing, artwork, whatever. And because they show so much passion, you love to feed it. Okay. And so passion is very attractive. Because it shows their heart, it shows what gets them kicking. The opposite to that is there are some people that, and I tend to find this in people who've been, I'll say, damaged or hurt in life a lot, and they haven't been able to find ways to handle it. And they become a ho-hum, I don't care, same garbage, different day, and they become passionless.
Well, and also it can slip into depression.
Yeah.
And so if you find yourself feeling depressed or, like you said, passionless, and it's kind of rubbing off on your marriage and your family, and people don't want to be around you, then take the bull by the horns and get some help. I mean, there is hope for that. And you don't have to live in this intimacy busting, passionless relationship. There is help.
Yeah. Number 6.
Yeah.
This is across the board, and it's pretty equal from both sides, even though men will say they need it more. But this is on both sides. It has to be pretty heavy. And that is always showing respect.
Yep.
Always
Wait
showing
a second.
respect.
Not always. You mean just when they earn it.
No, I mean always. And that's hard. Okay.
That's probably one of the biggest myths out there. Like, I will respect you when
you are
respectable.
Right. When
and
you
that
earn the respect.
Is a lie from the enemy.
And that's like love, right? We're called to love everyone, even when they're unlovable, okay? Because it means that we care about them. And respect is the same thing, that even though they have flaws and sins, you're not to love their sin. And I think that's the separation that you have to make, that, if your husband is being a total jerk and nasty to you and everything, we're not asking you to love that.
Right.
Okay. We're asking you to dislike that, but you're loving him with where he is. And that's when these things, are really difficult. That's when you are definitely recruiting God in with prayer and saying, this is hard.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do this, but I know I'm called to do it.
Yeah. I would even want to put number 6 with love and respect because they're both unconditional. They're both what we're looking for to build that intimacy. And then obviously that disrespect or that conditional love is really where people kind of, like I said, draw the line at that 50-50, you haven't earned it yet. And God is not that way toward us. He loves us even when we're disrespectable, even when we're unlovable. And that's what he's calling us to do to our partners.
Yeah.
Not trust, baby. Trust is earned. Okay. And that's really the difference between respect and trust.
Absolutely. I think that's how we actually help couples a lot. We're like, oh no, it's not a respect issue as much as you just don't trust him.
Exactly.
Which is there's a process that we go through there to help heal that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. This next one, you and I have found this to be a big thing in our marriage, and we have really worked to teach couples this, and that is, if you want to really heighten the intimacy in all levels, then are you dreaming for the future together? Are you dreaming together? Because those practiced dreams, now, it doesn't mean you can't have separate dreams, okay? But the idea that you dream together, hey, where do we want to retire together? What's the next vehicle we'd like to buy? What's a vacation we'd like to take together and have this experience together? Dreaming together means that we are coming together. We want to share a common experience, all right? And so that dreaming together is extremely important.
Yeah. And I would say, attached to that one, again, this is number 7, dreaming for the future has got to involve trust. I've got to trust that you've got my back. I got to trust that you're going to be around next week, okay? And so those two things together versus I don't trust you because you keep throwing me under the bus. We're living in the past. You keep bringing up my past issues. I thought we moved past that. And so there's this mistrust of you're going to stab me in the back. You're going to throw me under the bus. And so we got to get past that. And so 7 is dreaming and trusting for the future or living in the past.
Or avoid living in the past because that's the buster. Yeah. All right. Number 8. So a lot of times in our work, we get to use the phrase commonly or equally yoked. Okay. And so one way that that we talk about this in number 8 is the spiritual connection. All right. Versus no connection in anything other than the physical plane of life. Okay. So ways that you'll hear this, even outside of the religious world, the Christian world, you'll hear phrases like soulmates. Okay. And so this whole idea of this spiritual connection, this equally yoked, means that the two of you have put an understanding of your place in relationship to something way bigger, and in our case, to God and to Christ. And so we not just want to honor each other, we're trying to honor God. And so, we've used that diagram before with the triangle, and you've got God at the top and you've got us on the ends. And the closer we get to God, the closer we will get to each other. And so the spiritual connection or equally yoked will constantly work to bring us together more intimately. But if I'm just chasing my own physical plane and you're chasing yours, we may intersect or we may not.
Yeah. So I want to address that soulmate thing because we've had people come into our office before that felt like God only created one soulmate for you. Okay. And that if that person divorces you or if that person passes away, that you're done. And I disagree with that. I disagree. I believe that God connects
You're preparing me to tell me that you're looking for somebody else?
No. And I'm not saying we should always go back out looking for a better offer, an option. I'm saying that, but there are people that believe that there's only one soulmate out there. And I don't think that's in God's word.
No, and because, even back in the earliest of scriptures, we see that people are there to meet our needs, our intimate needs, emotional, spiritual, and physical. And so, a lot of different people could do that.
Yeah. And it takes two. So the spiritual connection is number 8. Number 9.
Number 9 is just the idea of cooperation. So in the psychology world, there's a measurement of people's agreeability. Okay. Some people are wired to be more agreeable. They tend to go with the flow. They want peace. They want things to be settled. Some people are more wired to be disagreeable. And I'm not being mean in any way here, but these are oftentimes people who will have to look for what's wrong even though so much could be right in the picture. Okay. There are professions that pay very well for that. Attorneys and journalists and stuff have to nitpick different things. And so that wiring can be good in some areas, but in relationship, cooperation and your ability to get along with others is critical.
Yeah. We actually do an online assessment for our premarital counseling couples and also our rock solid marriage couples. And one of the assessments is their ability to be flexible as a couple. And so that really is an intimacy builder versus rigidity, being rigid. And it's either my way or the highway. I'm not really going to listen to your opinion, or I'm not going to really, explore other options out there. It's this way or no way. And so that is an intimacy buster.
Yeah. And our last builder and buster. This is an underpinning of how we even learned it is through our faith in Christ. And so number 10 is, if you want to build intimacy, you better have grace flowing out of your relationship, flowing out of who you are. Grace means that you're going to give the person a second chance, that you're going to go ahead and not forget. Okay, we're never forgetting here, but you're going to go ahead and look for the best in that person. Okay, you're going to accept them and you're going to work through things. So basically giving that second chance and looking through all of their shortcomings, because you've also got the plank in your eye. And so grace is critical. But what's the opposite that we oftentimes, and we even find this in the church. Being legalistic or even condemning, right? Of just always looking at that speck in someone else's eye versus the Bible says to look at the plank in our own eye. And hon, I think about this with our relationship with Christ. Like, the intimacy with Christ comes when we understand that we are broken, sinful people in need of a Savior, and that we can't do it on our own, that his grace is bigger and greater than our disgrace, and that his sacrifice was sufficient for us. And when we accept that, man, we become a grace-filled person who wants to give that to people because we understand how big of a gift it was that we got, right? And man, that's that oneness that comes where we do, extend forgiveness and we do give second chances. And again, we're not saying you become a doormat, but the intimacy builds when we realize that we are two flawed human beings who are going to let each other down, who are going to give our best 100%. Even if we can't get to that 100%, we're going to give it all we got, and that intimacy just grows. Yeah, that was good stuff, hon. So, hon, I do want to read Colossians 3:12-21, and I want to read it because everything that we just talked about, I think it's really important that we get people to recognize this didn't come from you and I. No. Okay? This comes from way before us. This is foundational from God's word, and it proves out to be successful every time. And I think that's why we talk about rock solid families being founded on the rock in Matthew 7:24. And so Colossians 3 here, starting at verse 12, Paul is talking to the Colossians here, and he goes through a little bit of the passage, and he says, "Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion and kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with each other and forgive one another if any of you has a grievance against someone. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. And all of these virtues put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, since as members of one body, you were called to peace. Yes. And be thankful. Let the message of Christ dwell among you richly as you teach and admonish one another with all wisdom through psalms, hymns, and songs from the Spirit, singing to God with gratitude in your hearts. And whatever you do, whether it in word or deed, do it all in the name of Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. And I just think that that's important. Like, Linda and I didn't come up with this stuff. Okay. It's foundational to our faith, and there's a reason for it. Yeah, for sure. And so we hope that this has been helpful as we really unpack what God has already put in his word as a guide for us in marriage and really all relationships. This doesn't even have to be, you may not be sexually intimate with your boss, hopefully not. Although that would work for us. we wouldn't get fired for that.
Holy cow.
You
I
did
just
that,
went
see?
south. Sorry.
Yeah.
But, my point is that this is how we build intimacy with others. This is how we connect in a way that God has created us and designed us to be. We have been designed and created to be in community. We have connectedness needs that have got to be met for us to feel fulfilled and happy and joyful. And so we want that to be in your marriage and your family.
Yeah. I will put in the show notes our columns of the 10 different areas. So if you wrote them down, great. If you didn't write them down, that's fine. But as part of the challenge this week, I would ask you to go through and identify some of your areas that you do pretty well in, but maybe some areas where you're like, yeah, we don't really do that one well. Okay. And it's okay to score yourself. That's part of the idea of, I probably have to give myself a 2 in that area.
Yeah.
And, but then working on, okay, from now on, I'm going to make sure that I'm a lot more thankful, or I'm going to make sure I show a little bit more appreciation. The idea that you start having a consciousness and intentionality of working on this is going to be part of getting the intimacy back in your marriage.
And these aren't the be and end all. I mean, there's more than 10, obviously. We just kind of came up with 10 that we see.
It was a good even number.
Well, that we see on a regular basis, couples really starving the relationship with. And so we really wanted to hit some of our biggies that we see. So, as we close, we want to thank again our sponsors. We want to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions and Maxwell Construction for coming alongside Rock Solid Families and the Rock Solid Families podcast and really helping us to reach families with the gospel, with the good news, with the tools that he's given us in his word that really create that intimacy and that fulfillment that we want in our lives today.
All right. So thanks again for listening to Rock Solid Families podcast, building a stronger community, one family at a time. Make it a great day. Rock Solid Families wants to thank Maxwell Construction for sponsoring the Rock Solid Families podcast. For over 30 years, Maxwell Construction has been a leader in turning dreams into realities, building schools, banks, restaurants, and many other commercial and public facilities. Maxwell Construction has made it their priority to not just build buildings, but to build into their community. So if you have any construction needs, call them at 812-537-2200.